What it do, homies? We are out here with something interesting. I saw that there was like some rising keywords or whatnot, some popularity that was circling around this manga that is called what was it? Witch Hat Atelier. Okay. So I started diving into it, you know what I mean? Because I've been looking for another good manga to read or so and such and everything. And I found this video that says the most terrifying wow. depiction of magic in manga. Now that's interesting, right? Because whenever it comes to like channels like this is my first time on this person's channel. I assume that, you got 41,000 subs. This is probably not the first manga related video that you've made. You must know what you're talking about. Yet you still have this title. Piqued my interest, right? Because, as you that's watching, we probably consumed, whether it be anime or manga, a lot of magic systems. Now, why is this the most terrifying? So, piqued my interest. Let's go ahead and shut up, turn it up.
Have you ever experienced the paradox where you started to doubt the dreams you were chasing? A cruel realization that you almost wish that it just stayed a dream? Well, this manga is kind of like that.
Oh, I am fully aware. I saw in the description that this has spoilers in it. My way of reading manga is very weird. I could care less about the spoilers. I go through and read it anyways, because even if I see the spoilers, just having the spoilers still doesn't connect the dots for you. So that's what it becomes. So just let you know, for those of you who do like to read manga, if this is something you're interested in, there are spoilers in here. So.
Witch Hat Atelier presents this paradox in a very discreet way. I often hear and see people talk about how wholesome and cute this story is, which isn't wrong. It can be very wholesome and cute, but there's an unsettling side to the story that made me start questioning this reality. What started off as me saying, that's low-key fucked up, an average of some numeric value that I don't have per chapter, started to just become, no, this is actually fucked up. So I think the best way to grasp where this paradoxical idea of mine comes from is by first telling you about another story involving a Greek piece of shit who goes by the name of Tantalus. Tantalus was a king among mortals, born from the gods, and because of this, he was welcomed at the table of Olympus to dine with them. He enjoyed listening to them share their divine secrets and knowledge, but eventually, he grew a lust to know more from them. And so, King Tantalus's hubris led him to plan an act of deception by killing his own son and serving him as a meal to the gods in an attempt to test their omniscience. But the gods, they weren't fooled. They quickly became aware of the gruesome act and banished King Tantalus to Tartarus. There he was in perpetual thirst and hunger while being constantly surrounded by water that would recede as he bends down to quench his thirst, and low-hanging fruit on a branch that would pull away when he tried to alleviate his hunger.
I heard about this. This is wasn't this one of the levels of purgatory that Dante discovered as he was descending among the levels of hell in the book?
Tantalus is the reason the word tantalize exists, which means to give someone hope only to disappoint them by not giving what you appeared to offer.
My wife does that sometimes.
Which now leads us to the question of, how does this present itself in what I call the Witch Hat Atelier paradox?
This production is well done. Good stuff.
The story follows Coco, an ordinary little girl who absolutely adores magic because of a sketchy witch who sold a supposed wand, a picture book about magic, and a dream to her. A dream to one day become a witch herself. But for her entire life, she was told and even understood that she would never be able to use magic. Because in this world, you can't just become a witch, you have to be born that way. One day, while helping her mother at their shop, Coco meets a witch named Kifri who ends up offering to fix a carriage that broke. But instead of being able to see him work his wonders, Kifri asks Coco to do an important job for him while he fixes the carriage, and it's to make sure that nobody tries to catch a glimpse of him casting the spell. Coco said, "Fuck that, I'm catching a peek," and what she saw wasn't a man casting magic with words, but drawing it. This entirely rewrites the world that Coco thought she understood, and she begins to use the pen from the sketchy witch to draw magic of her own. Eventually, she spammed enough spells to get a basic idea, but wanted to draw them much neater, and so she started to trace the magic in the picture book she got from the sketchy witch.
Oh.
The spell that Coco drew turned her mother to stone and jeopardized her memories being erased by Keyfree, as it's the
wait. This origin story, while it doesn't, I don't know which one came first, but I'm just gonna assume this sounds very somewhat similar to Full Metal Alchemist, right? Where it wasn't really magic, it was just alchemy, but they also had to draw out, the formula, the pentagrams, and then they messed around too much and drew something that they weren't supposed to, ended up losing their mother. You know what I mean? So I see the similarities, but it might have been inspiration. I'm pretty sure this deviates from somebody, but as I was listening to that, I was just like, I know somebody that was in a similar situation like that. Also, what's that guy's name? I forgot what his name is. Never mind.
one great rule for witches to hide the fact.
F. Shao Tucker, by the way. Say that. Every time I think of F that dude. All right.
That memories being erased by Keyfree, as it's the one great rule for witches to hide the fact that anyone can use magic. But as a secret exception to help save her mother, Keyfree lets Coco keep her memories so she can study magic and live out her dream of being a witch.
That's planned, for sure. He knows what he's doing. That was no accident. For sure planned. Hey, don't take a look, knowing for sure you're going to take a look. There's something going on there. You're cooking with this music choices.
Next to those giant fire-breathing aerial lizards that we call dragons, magic is probably the world's most universally understood fantasy. I mean, in every mythology, folklore, and fantasy-based story, magic exists in some way to aid an individual or community. In Witch Hat Atelier, magic is taught to be a tool that innovates life and creates joy, and unironically, the magic system that Kamome Shirahama creates for the story is probably one of the most innovative concepts that is so well thought out that you, yes you, every single one of you beautiful human beings, excluding Dylan, can literally identify what a magic circle will do based on its 3 building blocks. The middle sign is called a sigil and determines the element of the magic. The arrangement of signs around it determine how the magic will be expelled, and closing the circle that surrounds all of that will activate the magic. But that's just the basics. Let me tell you how deep this shit really goes. With advanced spells, you can use a connecting line between magic circles to link them and change the potency as many times as you want, or completing the circle on a separate object so you can toggle the magic on and off, or creating smaller magic circles within a big one to combine their effects. And to think that this is just the surface of what people were able to identify in the series thus far is...
Wait. You created this. See, here's my question. When I think of people who create systems, creative systems and everything to, breathe life, give reason to this fantasy world, I always sit here to think there's no way that you created this with the intent of it only living in this universe. You know what I mean? Think of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I can't remember if the card game, I'm pretty sure card game came out first and then the anime came out. You know what I mean? So that's a no-brainer. But something like this, it almost begs to say that there's no way, people coming up with all this reason why, there's no way that it just exists in the manga. It has to exist in some capacity outside of that, whether it be like a video game or a trading card. Because look how, we just basically just touched on it, but this got to exist somewhere. I might have to look it up, like a trading card game, right? If you got all those combinations, or a video game, it sounds pretty cool, honestly.
Actual insanity. Holy fucking shit. Do not let me draw ever again. This magic system is very different from others. I mean, you quite literally have the ability to understand what it must feel like to craft your own magic. Obviously, you're just going to get a piece of paper with some fucking doodles on them if you try to, but that doesn't stop you from having an idea of what the magic circle you drew might do. You're straight up handed the ability to grasp its endless possibilities and understand what this story means when they say that magic exists to innovate life and spread kindness. Except endless possibilities also mean the opposition of what we're told exists, and out of everybody, Coco is one of the few people who understands that most. Forbidden magic are spells that exist for the intent of harm or personal gain, teleportation spells without a vehicle or door, spells that are explicitly used as a weapon, and any spells used directly on the body or even written onto the body, including those that heal, are considered forbidden and are taboo in the world of witches, with the only exception being the spell to make people forget. Magic is a tool of manipulation. As much as it's preached magic to be used as a tool for good by those who want to protect the stability of the world that inherently comes with deceiving people. In fact, there's plenty of unfortunate examples of this in the real world. They don't call them magic tricks for the fuck of it. They call it that because deception is the foundation of magic.
How did you do that?
Very well, I thought. It's sleight of hand.
Randy.
To explain the tricks to you would give you one solution, but it wouldn't give you all of the solutions.
Randy.
In this story, when magic is used with seemingly good intent, it's usually mixed with some ulterior motive and by people you would least expect or even forget about because of how much optimism they shine on the story. There's an incredibly impactful moment where Coco feels like she's out of options and starts to make her way to the Tower of Tomes, a place that Kiefer mentioned to keep logs on every piece of knowledge that exists. And that's where Coco hopes to find a way to save her mother. Eventually, Kiefer finds her, tells her everything is going to be alright, and tries bringing her back. But that's when we learn about how conflicted Coco's become with her entire journey of magic so far.
The more I learn about magic, the more uneasy it makes me. The more I study, the more things I'm told I mustn't do. What if no matter how hard I try, my work never pays off? I worry that when my hands fail to find hope, when they end up grasping at thin air, that I just might begin reaching for things I shouldn't.
What follows is
Okay. I think I kind of get what you're going on right here, right? Interesting. Used as a tool, the magic imitates life, right? And like, what is life? You don't have the answers to everything, right? There are times where, you're, like I said, reach for something, but it'll fail. And you don't have all the answers. And there are things, laws, rules, things you shouldn't do, both legally and morally, things you shouldn't do. And that extends down to the magic. And that's wow. Okay. I really like that. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Is Kiefer explaining how although magic is something that manifests hope, it itself is not the answer to every solution. The avenues for hope exist in the mind of a witch. Magic only thrives when a witch is able to put pen to paper in imaginative ways, and that's what makes magic magic. You see, I loved everything about this moment. It was wholesome, inspirational, served as a real tipping point in Coco's character, while also making me realize how almost every single thing that's said in this manga makes you really start to think, who's lying?
Where are you pulling your
Kiefer
music
is
from?
an incredibly complicated fellow. He's got drip, is chill as fuck, can be badass as fuck, and more times than not, he is the ideal mentor. But because of that,
I love how you led with the drip. Gotta lead with the drip. I always thought about making like another YouTube channel where all I do is solemnly talk about the drip. And I mean, I like break it down, you know what I mean? To the color choice, if there's color, the garments, what it's inspired by, what I think, you know what I mean? I might just do it. I have songs that I've made about anime characters' drips. You know what I mean? So
ass as fuck, and more times than not, he is the ideal mentor. But because of that, I also think he is the most unpredictably deceptive character in the series by far. From the very moment Kiefer was introduced and so forth, he was shown to have a side to his character that acted independently from everyone, a side controlled by radical emotions so strong that he even distrusts his best friend. Despite this, he actively is showcased as an incredibly good-willed person, with how he carries himself, the way he mentors his apprentices, and even his judgment on morally gray situations. It's really hard to not think that he's just a good guy, except when you pair that with his suspicious mischief behind the scenes and monologues of inner doubt, it just creates this constant unease. Like, is he genuine? Is he selfish? Does he care? Does he not care? Like, what's this guy's deal?
There's a manga panel in here where they were kind of showing, the left side of him that was dark. And that got me started thinking about, both the dark and the light within us. Because there's nobody out there that is all good. And there's nobody out there that is all evil. You know what I mean? There's at least some good in the most evilest being and some evil in the most goodest being. You know what I mean? And obviously you want to keep this in balance. For the most part, you would want more good, to override, you know what I mean? But the fact that you're bringing up these questions about, who are you and everything, what that tells me is that it sounds like we're dealing with a character that has achieved balance, if you will, right? That you can't decide where he's going to go because he's equally playing on both sides. Kind of like a Grey Warden, right? Mace Windu type of stuff, right? Wielding both the dark. I'm not that big of a fan of Star Wars. Wielding both the dark and the light. plus look at his monocle, right? One's dark, one's light. What am I to make of that?
Times. One moment he's the coolest motherfucker ever, and then the next he looks like he's willing to sacrifice an entire litter of soft kittens for a half-eaten cheeseburger. But Kiefer isn't the only person in this manga that makes me feel severely conflicted. As the story further progresses, this duality in characters either develops in others or begins to present itself more blatantly. Every single character is as volatile as the magic that exists. This story that was once filled with vibrantly magical moments that words couldn't even begin to describe are now just periodically euphoric moments that are or bound to be shackled in sorrow. It constantly keeps me on edge, and I'm always caught thinking about how these characters are unaware of what's below each other's mask. But as this thought came to mind, I started thinking about this girl at work. this plumpy, short, middle-aged white lady that I'd see here and there as I day in and day out do the bare minimum of labor while my sanity is begging for my shift to be over with already. And this lady is very jolly. Like, I swear that to every single person in the facility, she will give the same gleeful good morning with a slight chuckle after every sentence in response. This, of course, made me start concocting a ridiculous hypothesis on if this lady has some sort of underlying hatred against the world that she wants to hide from people. Why do I think like that? What the fuck? But maybe she's genuinely just a happy person, and I'm a piece of shit for assuming that.
Want to hide from people? What do you mean by that? You mean like people who kind of overly joyful, right? It almost kind of feels like they're overcompensating for something, that they are hiding something deep down, and they need to be able to act in the most extreme circumstance of emotions in order to hide who they truly are. Is that what you mean by that?
What the fuck? But maybe she's genuinely just a happy person, and I'm a piece of shit for assuming that, which is probably more accurate, to be honest. Just like how this guy can be seen as a piece of shit for assuming that this guy is associated with some objectively bad witches because of the magic circle tattooed on his chest. However, we actually know that he's a regular person who travels as a bard to make people smile. So this magic circle on his chest, he's clueless of its origins or properties. But with context that felt entirely random before the fact, you know that it's a regularly used spell repurposed for something unknowingly sinister. Because of this tattoo, Dogdon is in a perpetual state of refreshing the moment he dies. Over and over again, he makes new memories only for them to cease to exist. Again and again, he's brought to good health, eventually succumbing to the same brutal wounds. And death after death, he searches for Kustis just to see him cry over his dying body once more. It's really fucked up. Not his fault, and was only casted on him because Kustis wanted to save his life. But because he violated the witch's law, he's not questioned, he's just treated as a dangerous criminal. I mean, this guy is not harming anybody. Not anyone innocent, at least. I mean, this knight heard some music while off duty, locked the fuck in, found the source of the song, and was like, "You fiend! Step away from the children and put that lucrative weapon down! It's a fucking loot, buddy." And that's not even the worst part about this whole thing. It's the fact that this guy is gay. No, being gay is not the worst part. Gay people are cool. That's why it's the worst part. He's actually a really good guy, but we only figure that out after he gets the short end of the stick. Every single time I chose to turn to the next chapter, to the next page even, I became more and more conflicted with just the smallest of side plots. And eventually I realized that for me, this manga didn't only manipulate its characters, it also manipulated me. It toyed with my emotions by what I can only describe as a triple pump fake that gets fallen for every time. How would
you want to know something? You kind of challenging me for, let's see, Kedzutsu Kami. You're kind of challenging me now, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of manga that I would read that actually does kind of have some like really deep heaviness of it that you can't just passively read, right? And this dive that you're doing within this manga, I'm wondering if other people who have read it or are reading it kind of got a similar story, or have their eyes been awakened? You know what I mean? Because, you could passively read something and get something completely different from it, right? And then somebody would create something and you're just like, hold on, I was not looking at that in that way. You know what I mean? Am I describing you, right? You type of person that's been reading this, you've been in love with this manga, has he given something new to you, refreshed this for you? Was you thinking along these lines? Or is this a really, really, really just like one of those really fantastic deep dives that you wouldn't have been able to come up with this type of summarization unless you've seen a video like this?
Is a manga able to do that? Anyways, I think the main source of every conflict in this story, both figuratively and internally, is created because of the great law among witches. This grandiose law is meant to be the solution to an age of hurt caused by magic, when all it's really done is flare up more problems and be used as an excuse to not save people. Objectively, the restrictions that exist because of this law is dumb as fuck. It's basically like cleaning the floor by sweeping all the soot and dust underneath the couch, except it's been done throughout multiple generations under that same couch. In Witch Hat, it's erasing the memories of people at every minor inconvenience in order to keep the slate of people who know about magic clean. And after generations of neglect, it's become the reason why Coco's ideation of magic is not what she believed it to be. The law meant to protect people robbed her of her childhood and her mother.
Man, would you just say it there? That, you know what, man, there's so many applications of that you see here in real life of things that are kept away from us for a long period of time to where it's warped our perception of what it actually is. You know, what we once had that we don't have anymore, and it's been too, come on, man.
You see, magic is the temptation that Tantalus seeked from the gods, but the result of this curiosity was low-hanging fruit and water before his feet that would recede as he'd reach for them. And for Coco, the fruit and water that's all around her is magic that can save her mother, but any attempt to reach for such magic is impossible. In the manga, Coco is still about 12 years old and is forced to be more than just a 12-year-old against some of the wisest witches. Just like how magic fuels manipulation, that wholesome outline blinds the fact that this story is really about how a kid is forced to grow up, how magic is like a wildfire, how hope feels like nothing but a means to an end, and how fate isn't defined by what life you were born into.
Yeah.
Rather, it's defined by how you choose to embrace the circumstances and live out that very breath. This, I think, is the true message that this manga tries to convey. Witch Hat seems far from being something that'll have a conclusion anytime soon, and as a result, everything that's happened so far has felt bittersweet. But regardless of the awful circumstances, they still somehow end up finding peace in that, a peace completely separate and alien from the tantalizing existence of magic. Sometimes we look at things with
I like that. This is a good analysis. I really like that. You really draw comparisons to life, right? You know, one of the earliest lessons that my dad taught me when I was growing up is that the world doesn't owe you anything. You know what I mean? That is unfair. That there's a whole lot of things you'll reach for and never achieve, you know, the answers and everything. So, wow. This is good stuff.
This sparkle in our eyes, eager to one day grasp it for ourselves. Money, fame, achievements, whatever the fuck. But what I think this manga tries to say, and will continue to say as long as its story highlights that awe, is something along the lines of, hey, just make sure you don't get lost on the way. It can get rough. So sometimes it's good to acknowledge that the best things are already in front of you. And I think that's what led me to calling this strange.
Be thankful for the things that you have instead of thinking that there are greater things on the other side, right? You leave the thing because if you leave what you had going for you for the pursuit of something else, and you've lost that, and now you're lost, right? So,
Conclusion of mine. The Witch Hat Atelier Paradox. Hi. Somehow you made it to the end of this video, and I appreciate you for that.
this is good production, man. You see this all the time, right? Where you'll see like, you know, seemingly small channels with just some of the craziest production, right? This is why that I'll be telling people that subscriber count don't matter. I think YouTube would greatly benefit from giving you the option to hide subscriber count, maybe even hide view count, right? Because I remember before I even became a YouTuber, there were some videos and stuff. It's funny, becoming a YouTuber and creating content yourself, whether that be, it changes how you view videos. It really do. It's weird. You know, I don't look at YouTube the same, you know what I mean? But I do remember that time where I was not looking at subscriber count. I was not looking at view. I wasn't looking at anything. And I still have that channel, you know what I mean? It's an old channel that I consume things on. And I remember watching things that weren't necessarily popular, but it brought me limitless joy. And sometimes I try to put myself back into that frame. that mind frame. But I'm only thinking of that because the production on this is absolutely insane. You deserve every bit of this, and I love that deep dive. I wouldn't mind. I don't know if you do more deep dives, but that was very well thought out. You guys let me know what you thought about this, right? Dave's out.